A history of how humans use the toilet, beginning in ancient times. This is part one of a two-part video, a very fascinating topic. See, there are many things that we have today that we take for granted and would be lost without. Take, for example, the toilet. It is extremely important to us. In the scale of historical time, we have had our inside toilets not all that long. I remember in the mid-1960s, my family used to vacation at Tawas Lake here in Michigan, and at that time, it was a lovely, small, very seemingly rural community, but flourished in the summer tourist season. But when nature called, we used an outhouse behind the cottage. It was a one-holer and had an aroma that is forever etched into my mind. There were chamber pots under all the beds that we could use to do our business and late at night. Then, in the morning, the pots were taken out and emptied, a job which nobody volunteered to do. One more little story before we go to the ancient past to see how people pooped and peed a long time ago, to put it bluntly. I have many wonderful memories of those vacations on the shores of Tawas Lake. I was in some ways a little bit of a brat, though. And it was around 11:30 on this particular warm, sultry summer night. And in the kitchen was my mom, my sister Roseanne, and my future sister-in-law Jean Ann Pop. Jean's father and mother, Bill and Elsie Pop, owned the rustic little cabin and oftentimes let us, as well as other friends, use it. All three needed to use the outhouse, but did not want to venture out in the dark, way out back behind the cottage, which wasn't very far, but it did seem like a long time after dark. So they hatched a plan, and so did I. Just outside the kitchen window was a nice honeysuckle bush, and they decided to go behind the bush to do their business. So they turned off the porch light and went out, and I waited till I thought they were squatted down, and then I flicked on the porch light. I heard surprised screaming, and a few choice names shouted out for me. I was laughing so hard, my stomach felt like it was about to burst. But did I catch hell? You bet I did, but it was quite worth it. Well, how about we take a bit of a hop back through time and visit Egypt and the Roman Empire in the ancient past. Egypt can get pretty darn hot, and of course, they didn't have air conditioning, so archaeologists doing excavations found how some of the rich cooled their backsides in the laboratory, if you will. They were excavating what had been a house, and they found a toilet seat, and the seat of the throne fit perfectly to the shape of a human's buttocks. The seat was actually carved from limestone, which has a real tendency to feel cool to the flesh. So, on those hot nights and days, some Egyptians cooled their derrieres on the limestone. The Romans attained a high degree of sophistication, and they actually made using the toilet a sort of a group affair, and their customs were pretty much practiced throughout the Roman Empire. In North Africa, a large privy dating back to ancient Rome was excavated and had 25 seats, and they were arranged around three sides of the room, so you could pretty much have a discussion with those other people who were tending to their business. And there was no privacy at all. In fact, the only separation between the seats was a carved dolphin figure. And the Romans were not, it would apparently be safe to say that they were not bashful. But of course, back in the days of ancient Rome, the invention of toilet paper was centuries away. It would not make it on the scene till the 1850s. AD 1850s, that is. So how did citizens of Rome clean up the vertical smile? In public restrooms, there would be a bucket of salt water along with a sponge attached at one end of a stick. The Romans would rub his or her posterior with the sponge, and as disgusting as it sounds, they would put the sponge back into the bucket for the next person to use. Have you ever heard of the expression getting the wrong end of the stick? It is believed that this saying was based on this verse on this use of the sponge and stick. During the time of Emperor Vespasian, urine was collected at public rest stops, and for a very good purpose. It was collected, and the ammonia in it was used to make fabric dyes. The ancient Romans were quite far advanced in some of their sanitary practices. For example, some of their plumbing could neatly put us to shame. The sewer system that they devised were meant to take a licking and keep on ticking, so to speak. In other words, they lasted a very, very long time. In fact, the Cloaca Maxima, loosely meaning big sewer, connected the farmers' forum, the famous forum, to the Tiber River. Today, well over 2,500 years since its creation, the Cloaca Maxima is still incredibly being used. And still, for about 1,000 years after the decline of the empire, chamber pots were kept under the bed, just as I wrote about in the beginning. This held true in ancient Rome also. There were chamber pots underneath their beds. The human waste was thrown directly out into the streets or into the rivers. And as you might imagine, disease caused by human waste flourished in ancient Rome. Well, let's hop forward just a little bit to the region of the reign of Richard II in England. The king saw things get so bad that he had to take matters into his own hands. And in 1388, the king issued a proclamation that it was illegal to throw waste matter into ditches, rivers, or water of any kind. If someone was caught, he or she had to remove the offending poop or be fined 20 pounds English. Well, that's the end of part 1. But if you have not had enough, part 2 will be along here very soon. And I hope that you've enjoyed this. And come on back. Please share your comments below.